Joshua, a story of fear, uncertainty, and promise. The air was thick with grief. Moses was dead. For 40 years, his presence had been the constant, the voice that spoke with God, the staff that parted seas, the man who brought water from rocks and bread from heaven. Now he was gone, buried by God's own hand in a place no one would ever find. And the entire nation of Israel stood at the edge of the Jordan River, staring across at a land they'd been promised but never possessed. And Joshua, son of Nun, servant of Moses, warrior and spy, felt the weight of those impossible shoes pressing down on his shoulders. He was not Moses. He had never claimed to be. Moses had been chosen from a burning bush, had confronted Pharaoh, had stood on the mountain and received the law written by the finger of God. What was Joshua? A soldier, a faithful servant, a man who had seen the promised land 40 years ago and believed it could be taken, even when 10 other spies said it couldn't. But believing from a distance and leading 2 million people into enemy territory were two very different things. Joshua stood alone in his tent as twilight settled over the camp. The sounds of morning had finally quieted, replaced by an uncertain silence. Tomorrow, the people would look to him. Tomorrow, decisions would need to be made. Tomorrow, he would have to be what Moses had been. The thought terrified him. Joshua. The voice was not loud, but it filled everything: the tent, the air, his chest, his bones. Joshua fell to his knees, and he knew. He knew this voice, though he had never heard it speak his name before. Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, into the land that I am giving to them. Joshua's throat tightened. The land, the promise, the giants and the fortified cities and the battle-hardened armies that had terrified the other spies decades ago. His mind raced with logistics, with impossibilities, with fear. But the voice continued, and with each word, something shifted in Joshua's chest. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given to you, just as I promised to Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, to the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your territory. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Joshua lifted his head, tears streaming down his face. Just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. 3 times God spoke those words, be strong and courageous. Not once, not twice, 3 times, as if God knew exactly how deep Joshua's fear ran. As if he understood that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Only be strong and very courageous, being careful to do according to all the law that Moses, my servant, commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may have good success wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. Then came the words that would echo in Joshua's mind for the rest of his life. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened, and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Joshua emerged from his tent with his jaw set and his eyes clear. He called the officers of the people and gave his first command. Pass through the midst of the camp and command the people, prepare your provisions, for within 3 days you are to pass over this Jordan to go and to take possession of the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. 3 days. After 40 years of wandering, 3 days to prepare for everything to change. But there was something he needed to do first. Joshua called for 2 men, young, capable, discreet. He told them quietly, "Go, view the land, especially Jericho." He remembered his own mission as a spy 4 decades earlier. He remembered the fear and the faith, the divided report, the people's rebellion. He would not make decisions blindly. The 2 spies slipped away in the darkness, crossing the Jordan under cover of night, making their way to Jericho, the fortress city that stood like a locked gate between Israel and their inheritance. In Jericho, terror had already arrived before the spies. The city was a fortress, with walls so thick that houses were built into them. But thick walls couldn't keep out the stories that had filtered through from the wilderness. Stories of a God who drowned armies in the sea, who fed millions with bread from heaven, who fought for his people with fire and plague and victory. Rahab the prostitute had heard all the stories. She lived in the wall, literally. Her house was built into the fortifications with a window that looked out over the approach to the city. She saw everything. She heard everything. And she had come to a conclusion that the king and the warriors and the priests of Jericho refused to accept. The God of Israel was real, and he was coming. So when 2 strangers appeared at her door, speaking Hebrew and asking for lodging, Rahab made a choice that would echo through history. When the king's men came searching, she hid the 2 spies under stalks of flax on her roof. When they demanded she hand over the Israelite spies, she sent the soldiers on a wild chase out toward the Jordan fords. And when the danger had passed, she climbed to the roof and faced the 2 men cowering among the harvest. "I know that the Lord has given you the land," she said, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. "For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you, when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan. And as soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, and there was no spirit left in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath." The spies stared at her. Here was the confirmation they needed, not just of Jericho's defenses, but of something far more important. The enemy was already defeated in their own hearts. "Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that as I have dealt kindly with you, you also will deal kindly with my father's house. And give me a sure sign that you will save alive my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and deliver our lives from death." The spies swore an oath. When Joshua came, when the city fell, and they no longer doubted it would, Rahab and her household would be spared. But she must bind a scarlet cord in her window, the same window through which she would lower the spies to escape. The scarlet thread would mark her house for salvation. As the 2 men disappeared into the darkness, making their way back to Joshua's camp, Rahab tied the crimson cord in her window. A prostitute in a pagan city had become the first Canaanite convert, saved by faith in a God she had only heard about, marked for redemption by a scarlet thread. "The Lord has given all the land into our hands," the spies reported to Joshua. "And also, all the inhabitants of the land melt away because of us." Joshua felt something settle in his chest. God had been right. The fear he felt was nothing compared to the fear that gripped their enemies. But there was still the Jordan River. It was harvest season, which meant the Jordan wasn't the gentle stream some might imagine. Spring rains and melting snow from Mount Hermon had swollen the river into a churning flood that overflowed its banks. There were no bridges, no boats large enough to ferry 2 million people, no shallow fords that could be crossed safely. There was just the impossible flooding river and God's promise that he would be with them. Joshua gave the order, "Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you." The next morning, the people packed their camp and moved toward the river. At the front of the procession, the priest carried the Ark of the Covenant, the golden box that held the tablets of the law, the jar of manna, Aaron's rod.